What is it that is so similar? It turned out to be the Korean elements of the Korean girl group ive new district mv and the product of thousands of years of Chinese culture. The facts about this ive return to cultural appropriation. As a Chinese, I have a lot to say. At best, South Korea helps spread Chinese culture. At worst, South Korea is simply a robber. Go ask your non-Korean Asian friends. Why do you say that South Korea enjoys the name of cultural thief in East Asia? This year, South Korea's narrow national concept and its cultural appropriation tactics have been well known in East Asia in order to ensure that non-East Asian cultural groups are not taken advantage of by Korean cultural appropriation when they follow the pop trend, and to defend the right of each ethnic group to their own unique culture, taking the cultural appropriation of the ive MV as a typical example. South Korea's cultural plagiarism of other East Asian countries is illustrated. The first is about the most obvious Chinese knot element. Oh my God. We put a picture above, which shows that the Korean knot worn on the ive head is almost exactly the same as the Chinese knot. It's okay to think that there is still a difference. In fact, Chinese knots are not only like this. In fact, Chinese knots are not very rigid in color and style, as long as it is a regular pattern compiled based on the knot method in the two pictures above. It is a Chinese knot. Also culturally similar East Asian countries. Japanese knots and Chinese knots have obvious differences in preparation methods and shapes. On the other hand, the Korean knot can be said to be almost indistinguishable. The so-called difference in official information is that the rope is tighter than the Chinese knot. You must know that many ethnic groups used knots to remember things in ancient times. But not every ethnic group can develop its own unique knot style. At least 2,500 years of history. Secondly, the fan. It can be seen that there is no difference in shape from the Chinese flying fairy fan. In fact, the prototype of the Faxian fan, the Pu fan, is the most traditional and widely used fan in China. And it also has a twin brother, the banana fan. As the magic weapon of the Rakshas, a girl in the Chinese mythological novel Journey to the West. South Korea, on the other hand, does not have any innovation in the production and design of the fan, but simply uses the original Chinese cooling tools. And the Faxian fan is a unique fan shape in China. Why is it called showing the beauty of Korea? Then the sun pattern. Draw it. Everyone should be able to see it. Plus girls dancing around. It's more like... But the pattern of the Chinese sun god bird is actually a cultural relic unearthed from the Jinja a few years ago. It's a symbol of a city. It's almost 3,000 years old. For China, the solar bird is like the pyramids for Egypt, one of the symbols of a resplendent ancient civilization in the past. Nothing to do with Korea. In terms of patterns, there are also these.
方胜纹、荷花纹、铜钱纹。
These are the most classic and common patterns in traditional Chinese patterns. In particular, the copper coin pattern, whose prototype is square whole copper coins. There is no doubt that the Chinese began to mint and use this copper coin in large quantities before 2000. The appearance of copper coin patterns even predates the use of copper coins on the Korean peninsula. Let's take a look at the most iconic auspicious cloud pattern in Chinese painting. From beginning to end, the auspicious cloud pattern has never been shared with any country. Chinese auspicious cloud patterns are the same as Chinese knots, characterized by elegance and agility. Compared with Japanese ukiyo-e painting yangsha, obvious style differences can be seen. Compare the cloud sample and auspicious cloud pattern in the MV again. It can be said very clearly that this is the auspicious cloud pattern. Let's talk about mountains that shouldn't be here. The shape and style of this mountain are too similar to the style of old Chinese cartoons and traditional Chinese simple meticulous landscape paintings. In addition, this magnificent and sharp-lined landform has only karst landforms. Such a distinct art style is only available in the Shanghai Art Film Studio. Just like Hayao Miyazaki's animation can be recognized at a glance. Let's see what karst landforms look like. But in Korea, there is no karst landform. So where is the real prototype of that mountain? If it is not for the reference of Chinese aesthetics, it is absolutely impossible to have such a landscape in Korea. But if it is for the reference of Chinese aesthetics, why do Koreans insist that this is the Korean style? This is a long-planned robbery. Now, about the silhouette. The picture shows a shadow play, which is a Chinese intangible cultural heritage. South Korea is not without similar entertainment products. South Korea has screenplays. The only difference between screenplays and shadow puppets is that the characters in screenplays are relatively colorful. Let it go and feel for yourself how similar it is. Koreans obviously have something that is their own, but Koreans lose it, and instead blur the boundaries with other cultures. Home flowers do not have the fragrance of wild flowers. Koreans like to encroach on things that do not belong to them. And finally, the costume design. Old Beijing embroidered shoes. Chinese buckle. Chinese traditional blue dye printing. Being Chinese is really hard not to feel overly similar. Please note that I will expose the evil deeds of the artist this time. This artist had traveled to Beijing, China, to study Chinese ink painting. But the later, the more the painter was interested in downplaying the traces of China on the homepage. Gradually, the homepage clearly painted Chinese landscape paintings, but there was no trace of China on the homepage, until it said Korean landscape paintings. What a disgusting behavior. Now, the artist has guiltily deleted all posts about China, but it was just one of the things she did. And the most unbearable was, the artist plagiarized the cultural relics unearthed from the tomb of Mrs. Shenjui in China. The cultural relics are T-shaped silk paintings covered on the coffin, which symbolize bliss after death. However, the artist erased the Chinese logo and painted it into a piece of clothing, claiming it was his own originality. So disrespectful to the deceased. It is spurned. In conclusion, we state a few points. First, we do not object to other countries using Chinese elements. We only hope that when it comes to China's unique culture, we can tell others loudly that this is Chinese culture, rather than guiding others to think that Chinese culture is other people's culture. Second, we know that the cultures of the East Asian cultural circle are similar, and there must be overlaps and similarities between countries. But we do not accept the extensive use of overlapping similar cultures without explanation, which will inevitably lead to cultural confusion. We hope that all countries will maintain a sense of boundaries and avoid being hurt. Third, South Korea has its own unique culture. In fact, there is no need to confuse other people's cultures. South Korea has white culture and Korean dance, both of which are very famous and excellent. I hope South Koreans can dig deep into their own unique culture. Stop staring at China. Fourth, ordinary and normal Chinese people have never had the idea that the world belongs to China. The Chinese have never said that Jesus is Chinese. It is impossible to know with your feet. Please don't believe it when you see such rumors. Chinese culture has not disappeared. The cultural fire is passed down from generation to generation. Please don't spread rumors that Chinese culture has disappeared. Thank you all for seeing this. Finally, I hope everyone cannot be troubled by cultural appropriation. Carry forward and create their own country's culture.